start with Pranam. Om Ajnan Vijnanasya. Chaturungatumyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishnaprestaya Bhutale Shri Vedanta Swami Dhanatme. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gauravata. Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyo Vacha Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. We are reading 19th chapter. Hare Krishna Satyamani, you can read.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Thus the king Maharaj Parikshit sat to fast until death. All the demigods of the higher planets praised the king's actions and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat celestial drums. Purport. Even up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, there were interplanetary communications, and the news of Maharaj Parikshit fasting unto death to attain salvation reached the higher planets in the sky where the intelligent demigods live. The demigods are more luxurious than human beings, but all of them are obedient to the orders of the Supreme Lord. There is no one in the heavenly planets who is an atheist or non-believer. Thus, any devotee of the Lord on the surface of the earth is always praised by them, and in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, they were greatly delighted and thus gave tokens of honor by scattering flowers over the earth and by beating celestial drums. A demigod takes pleasure in seeing someone go back to Godhead. He is always pleased with a devotee of the Lord, so much so that by his Adidevic powers, he may help the devotees in all respects. And by their actions, the Lord is pleased with them. There is an invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and the devotee of the Lord on the earth. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's 19.
Hare Krishna. Text 19. All the great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men, for they have all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Purport. The natural beauty of a living being is enhanced by rising up to the platform of devotional service. Maharaj Parikshit was absorbed in attachment for Lord Krishna. Seeing this, the great sages assembled were very pleased, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Such sages are naturally inclined to do good to the common man, and when they see a personality like Maharaj Parikshit advance in devotional service, the pleasure knows no bounds, and they offer all blessings in their power. The devotional service of the Lord is so auspicious that all demigods and sages up to the Lord himself become pleased with the devotee, and therefore the devotee finds everything auspicious. All inauspicious matters are removed from the path of a progressive devotee. Meeting all the great sages at the time of death was certainly auspicious for Maharaj Parikshit, and thus he was blessed by the so-called curse of a Brahmana boy. Hare Krishna.
Text 20. Hare Krishna Swapnamathi, you can read the first. Hare Krishna Swapnamathi.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Translation. The sages said, O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty, who are strictly in the line of Lord Sri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead. Purport. Foolish politicians who hold administrative posts think that the temporary posts they occupy are the highest material gain of life, and therefore they stick to those posts even up to the last moment of life, without knowing that achievement of liberation as one of the associates of the Lord in his eternal abode is the highest gain of life. The human life is meant for achieving this end. The Lord has assured us in the Bhagavad Gita many times that going back to Godhead, his eternal abode, is the highest achievement. Prahlada Maharaj, which while praying to Lord Narasimha, said, "O my Lord, I am very much afraid of the materialistic way of life, and I am not the least afraid of your present ghastly, ferocious feature as Nrsimhadeva. This materialistic way of life is something like a grinding stone, and we are being crushed by it. We have fallen into this horrible whirlpool of the tossing waves of life, and thus, my Lord, I pray to your lotus feet to call me back to your eternal abode of one of your servitors. This is the summit liberation of this materialistic way of life. I have very bitter experience of the materialistic way of life. In whichever species of life I have taken birth, compelled by the force of my own activities, I have very painfully experienced two things, namely separation from my beloved and meeting with what is not wanted. And to counteract them, the remedies which I undertook were most dangerous than the disease itself. So I drift from one point to another, birth after birth, and I pray to you, therefore, to give me a shelter at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jagannath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. The Pandava kings, who are more than many saints of the world, knew the bitter results of the materialistic way of life. They were never captivated by the glare of the impartial throne they occupied, and they sought always the opportunity of being called by the Lord to associate with him eternally. Maharaja Parikshit was the worthy grandson of Maharaja Yudhishthira. Maharaja Yudhishthira gave up the imperial throne to his grandson. And similarly, Maharaja Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaja Yudhishthira, gave up the imperial throne to his son Janmejaya. That is the way of all the kings in the dynasty, because they are all strictly in the line of Lord Krishna. Thus the devotees of the Lord are never enhanced by the glare of materialistic life, and they will live impartially, unattached to the objects of the false, illusory, materialistic way of life. Hare Krishna.
Text 21. We shall all wait here until the foremost devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Pariksit, returns to the supreme planet, completely free from all mundane contamination and all kinds of lamentation. Perfect. Beyond the limitation of the material creation, which is compared to the cloud in the sky, there is a Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky, full of planets called Vaikunthas. Such Vaikuntha planets are also differently known as the Purushottama Loka, Achyuta Loka, Trivikrama Loka, Rishikesha Loka, Keshava Loka, Aniruddha Loka, Madhava Loka, Pradyumna Loka, Sankarshana Loka, Sridhara Loka, Vasudeva Loka, Ayodhya Loka, Dwaraka Loka, and many other millions of spiritual lokas, wherein the personality of the Godhead predominates. All the living entities there are liberated souls with the spiritual bodies as good as that of the Lord. There is no material contamination. Everything there is spiritual, and therefore there is nothing objectively lamentable. They are full of transcendental bliss and are without birth, death, old age, and disease. And amongst all the above mentioned Vaikuntha Lokas, there is one supreme Loka called Goloka Vrindavan, which is the abode of the Lord Sri Krishna and his specific associates. Maharaj Parikshit was destined to achieve this particular Loka, and the great rishis assembled there could foresee this. All of them consulted among themselves about the great departure of the great king. And they wanted to see him up to the last moment because they would no more be able to see such a great devotee of the Lord. When a great devotee of the Lord passes away, there is nothing to be lamented because the devotee is destined to enter into the kingdom of the God. But the sorry plight is that such great devotees leave our sight, and therefore there is no every reason to be sorry. As the Lord is rarely to be seen by our present eyes, so also are the great devotees. Great rishis therefore correctly decide to remain on the spot till the last moment. Hare Krishna. Text 22 and 23. Hare Krishna. Saraswati, you can.
Hare Krishna. Text 22, translation. All that was spoken by the great sages was very sweet to hear, full of meaning and appropriately presented as perfectly true. So after hearing them, Mara Parikshit, desiring to hear the activities of Lord Sri Krishna, the personal Godhead, congratulated the great sages. Text 23. The king said, O great sages, you have all very kindly assembled here, having come from all parts of the universe. You are all as good as supreme knowledge personified, who resides in the planet Echo, the three worlds Satyaloka. Basically, you are naturally inclined to do good to others, but for this you have no interest either in this life or in the next.
Can you continue?
Continue.
Hare Krishna. Saraswati, you can. Hare Krishna. Saraswati.
Hare Krishna. Translation. The king said, O great sages, you have all very kindly assembled here. Having come from all parts of the universe, you are all as good as supreme knowledge personified, who resides in the planet above the three worlds, Satyaloka. Consequently, you are naturally inclined to do good to others. But for this, you have no interest either in this life or in the next. Purport. 6 kinds of opulences, namely wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, are all originally the different attributes pertaining to the absolute personality of Godhead. The living beings, who are part and parcel entities of the Supreme Being, have all these attributes partially up to the full strength of 78%. In the material world, these attributes, up to 78% of the Lord's attributes, are covered by the material energy as sun is covered by a cloud. The covered strength of the sun is very dim compared to the original glare. And similarly, the original color of the living beings with such attributes becomes almost extinct. There are 3 planetary systems, namely the lower worlds, the intermediate worlds, and the upper worlds. The human beings on earth are situated at the beginning of the intermediate worlds, but living beings like Brahma and his contemporaries live in the upper worlds, of which the topmost is Satyaloka. In Satyaloka, the inhabitants are fully cognizant of Vedic wisdom, and thus the mystic cloud of material energy is cleared. Therefore, they are known as the Vedas personified. Such persons, being fully aware of knowledge, both mundane and transcendental, have no interest in either the mundane or transcendental worlds. They are practically desireless devotees. In the mundane world, they have nothing to achieve, and in the transcendental world, they are full in themselves. Then why do they come to the mundane world? They descend to different planets as messiahs by the order of the Lord to deliver the fallen souls. On the earth, they come down and do good to people of the world in different circumstances under different climatic influences. They have nothing to do in this world save and except reclaim the fallen souls rotting in material existence, deluded by material energy.
24. I'm sure, Prabhu.
Text 24.
Hare Krishna.
Text 24.
Can we scroll?
Is it visible?
Text 24. Translation. O trustworthy Brahmanas, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die. Sages. The first, am I audible?
There was a break.
Okay. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two, the question relating to the dying man is most important, because Everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of a dying man is very important. Maharaj Parikshit placed these two questions before Sukadev Goswami also on his arrival, and practically the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from the second canto up to the last, the 12th canto, deals with these two questions. The conclusion arrived at thereof is that devotional service of the Lord Sri Krishna, as it is confirmed by the Lord himself, is the last phases in the last phases of the Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of this fact, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. He has especially mentioned the word Suddha or perfectly correct. For transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class methods and some of them are second or third-class measures. The first-class method demand that one give up all other methods and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Swapnamadi. Hare Krishna, Swapnamadi.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Translation. At that moment, there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva, who traveled over the earth, disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. Purport. The word Bhagavan is sometimes used in relation with some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Sukadev Goswami. Such liberated souls are disinterested in the affairs of this material world because they are self-satisfied by the great achievements of devotional service. As explained before, Sukadev Goswami never accepted any formal spiritual master, nor did he undergo any formal reformatory performances. His father Vyasadeva was his natural spiritual master because Sukadev Goswami heard Srimad Bhagavatam from him. After this, he became completely self-satisfied. Thus, he was not dependent on any formal process. The formal processes are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation. But Sri Sukadev Goswami was already in that status by the grace of his father. As a young boy, he was expected to be properly dressed, but he went about naked and was uninterested in social customs. He was neglected by the general populace, and inquisitive boys and women surrounded him as if he were a madman. He thus appears on the scene while traveling on the earth of his own accord. This appears that upon the inquiry of Maharaja Parikshit, the great sages were not anonymous in their decision as to what was to be done. For spiritual salvation, there was many prescriptions according to the different modes of different persons. But the ultimate aim of life is to attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service to the Lord. As doctors differ, so also sages differ in their different end prescriptions. While such things were going on, the great and the powerful son of Vyasadeva appeared on the scene. Hare Krishna.
Excellent. Hare Krishna, Sagar. Hare Krishna, Sagar.
Hare Krishna. Text,
Yes.
text 26. This son of Vyasadeva was only 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and other parts of the body were all delicately formed. His eyes are beautifully wide, and his nose and ears are highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. Perfect. Respectable personality is described beginning with the legs. And this honored system is observed here with Sukadev Goswami. He is only 16 years old, 16 years of age. A person is honored for his achievements, not for his advanced age. A person can be older by experience and not by age. The Sukadev Goswami, who is described herein as the son of Vasudeva, was by his knowledge more experienced than all the sages present there. Therefore, he was only 16 years old. Hare Krishna.
Next 27. Hare Krishna Jagannath Prabhu.
27. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
His collarbone was fleshy. His chest broad and thick. His navel deep and his abdomen beautifully stripped. His arms were long and curly hair was strewn over the beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. Perfect. His bodily features indicate him to different from common men. All the signs described in connection with the bodily feature of Sukadeva Goswami are uncommon symptoms, typical of a great personalities uh, according to
Physiognomical.
calculations. His bodily hue resembled that Lord Krishna, who is the supreme among the gods, demigods, and all living beings. Hare Krishna.
28. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smile, he was pleasing to women. Though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physiognomy, and so they honored him by rising from their seats. Text 29. Maharaj Parikshit, who is also known as Vishnu Ratha, one who is always protected by Vishnu, put his head to the received the chief guest, Sukadev Goswami. At that time, all the ignorant women and boys ceased following Srila Sukadeva. Receiving respect from all, Sukadev Goswami took his elated seat. Purport. On Sukadev Goswami's arrival at the meeting, everyone except Srila Vyasadeva, Narada, and a few others stood up. And Maharaj Parikshit, who was glad to receive a great devotee of the Lord, bowed down before him with all the limbs of his body. Sukadeva Goswami also exchanged the greetings and reception by embrace, picking of hands, nodding and bowing down, especially before his father and Narad Munis. Thus, he was offered the presidential seat at the meeting. When he was so received by the king and the sages, street boys and less intelligent women who followed him were struck with wonder and fear. So they retired from the frivolous activities and everything was full of gravity and claim. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Sajja Madhuri, you can read text 30.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Sukadev Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies. His presence was gorgeous and he was respected by all. Purport. In the great assembly of saintly personalities, there was Vyasadeva, the Brahmarshi, Narada, the Devarshi, Parashurama, the great ruler of the Kshatriya kings, etc. Some of them were powerful incarnations of the Lord. Sukadev Goswami was not known as Brahmarshi, Rajarshi, or Devarshi, nor was he an incarnation like Narada, Vyasa, or Parashurama, and yet he excelled them in respects paid. This means that the devotee of the Lord is more honored in the world than the Lord himself. One should therefore never minimize the importance of a devotee like Sukadev Goswami. Hare Krishna. Text 31.
Abhishek.
Hare Krishna. Text 31. The sage Sri Sukadev Goswami sat perfectly pacified, intelligent, and ready to answer any question without hesitation. The great devotee Maharaj Parikshit approached him, offered his respects by bowing before him, and politely inquired with sweet words and folded hands. Purport. The gesture now adopted by Maharaj Parikshit of questioning a matter is quite befitting in terms of scriptural injunctions. The scriptural injunction is that one should humbly approach a spiritual master to understand the transcendental science. Maharaj Parikshit was now prepared for meeting his death, and within the very short time of 7 days, he was to know the process of entering the kingdom of God. In such important cases, one is required to approach a spiritual master. There is no necessity of approaching a spiritual master unless one is in need of solving the problems of life. One who does not know how to put questions before the spiritual master has no business seeing him. And the qualification of the spiritual master is perfectly manifested in the person of Sukadev Goswami. Both the spiritual master and the disciple, namely Sri Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, attained perfection through medium of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami learned Srimad Bhagavatam from his father Vyasdev, but he had no chance to recite it. Before Maharaj Parikshit, he recited Srimad Bhagavatam and answered the questions of Maharaj Parikshit unhesitatingly, and thus both the master and the disciple got salvation.
Text 32. Hare Krishna, Swapna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Text 32 translation. The fortunate King Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we who are but unworthy royalty become eligible to serve the devotee. Purport. Saintly devotees like Sukadev Goswami generally do not approach worldly enjoyers, especially those in royal orders. Maharaja Prataparudra was a follower of Lord Chaitanya, but he wanted to see the Lord. The Lord refused to see him because he was a king. For a devotee who desires to go back to Godhead, two things are strictly prohibited: worldly enjoyers and women. Therefore, the devotees of the standard of Sukadev Goswami are never interested in seeing kings. Maharaja Parikshit was, of course, a different case. He was a great devotee, although a king, and therefore Sukadev Goswami came to see him in his last stage of life. Maharaja Parikshit, out of his devotional humility, felt himself an unworthy descendant of his great Kshatriya forefathers, although he was great as his preceders. The unworthy sons of royal orders are called Kshatriya Bandhavas, as the unworthy sons of the Brahmanas are called Dvijabandhus or Brahmabandhus. Maharaja Parikshit was greatly encouraged by the presence of Sukadev Goswami. He felt himself sanctified by the presence of great saint, whose presence turns any place into a place of pilgrimage. Hare Krishna.
33. Hare Krishna, Jagannath.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Simply by our remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. And what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home. Purport. The importance of holy places of pilgrimage is due to the presence of a great sages and saints. It is said to sinful persons to go to the holy places and leave their sins there to accumulate. But the presence of the great saints disinfects the accumulated sins, and thus the holy places continue to remain sacrificed by the grace of devotees and saints present there. If such saints appears in the homes of worldly people, certainly the accumulated sins of such worldly enjoyers become the neutralized. Therefore, the holy saints actually have no self-interest with the householders. The only aim of such saints is to sacrifice the houses of the householders, and the householders therefore should feel grateful when such saints and sages appears at the doors. A householder who dishonors such holy orders is a great offender. It is enjoyed, therefore, that a householder who does not bow down before a saint at once must undergo fasting for the day in order to neutralize the great offense. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, we have 6 more slokas. We'll take extra 5 to 10 minutes and we'll complete this candle. Next 34. Just as the atheist cannot remain in the presence of the personality of the head, so also the invulnerable sins of man are immediately vanquished in your presence. O saint, O great mystic. Purport. There are two classes of human beings, namely the atheist and the devotee of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord, because of manifesting godlike qualities, is called a demigod, whereas the atheist is called a demon. The demon cannot stand the presence of Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. The demons are always busy in trying to vanquish the personality of Godhead, but actually, as soon as the personality of Godhead appears, by either his transcendent name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, or variegatedness, the demon is at once vanquished. It is said that a ghost cannot remain as soon as the holy name of the Lord is chanted. The great saints and devotees of the Lord are in the midst of his paraphernalia, and thus, as soon as the saintly devotee is present, the ghostly sins are at once vanquished. This is the verdict of the Vedic scriptures. One is recommended, therefore, to associate only with the saintly devotees so that worldly demons and ghosts cannot exert inner in their sinister influence. Hare Krishna Satyamani. Next study. Hare Krishna Satyamani Radhaksha Prabhu. Prabhupada, you can read.
Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is very dear to the sons of King Pandu, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousins and brothers. Purport, a pure and exclusive devotee of the Lord serves his family interest more dexterously than others who are attached to illusionary family affairs. Generally, people are attached to family matters, and the whole economic impetus of human society is moving under the influence of family affection. Such deluded persons have no information that one can render better service to the family by becoming a devotee of the Lord. The Lord gives special protection to the family members and descendants of a devotee, even though such members are themselves non-devotees. Maharaj Prahlada was a great devotee of the Lord, but his father Hiranyakashipu was a great atheist and declared enemy of the Lord. But despite all this, Hiranyakashipu was awarded salvation due to his being the father of Maharaj Prahlada. The Lord is so kind that he gives all protection to the family members of his devotee, and thus the devotee has no need to bother about his family members, even if one leaves such family members aside to discharge devotional service. Maharaj Yudhishthir and his brothers were the sons of Kunti, the paternal aunt of Lord Krishna, and Maharaj Parikshit admits the patronage of Lord Krishna because of his being the only grandson of the great Pandavas. Hare Krishna.
Excellent.
He's in a office meeting.
Okay. Swapnamati, you can read it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Translation. Otherwise, without being inspired by Lord Krishna, how is it that you are voluntarily appeared here? Though you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death. Purport. The great sage Sukadev Goswami was certainly inspired by the Lord Krishna to appear voluntarily before Maharaja Parikshit, the great devotee of the Lord, just to give him the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the nucleus of the devotional service of the Lord by the mercy of spiritual master and the personality of Godhead. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. Srila Sukadev Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaja Parikshit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to the Godhead of if he is favored by the Lord sending his true representative. As soon as the true representative of the Lord is met by the devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured a guarantee for going back to Godhead just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of the devotee himself. The Lord is seated in the heart of all living beings, and thus he knows very well the movements of all individual persons. As soon as the Lord finds that a particular soul is very eager to go to Godhead, go to back to Godhead, the Lord at once sends him bona fide representative. The sincere devotee is thus assured by the Lord of going back to Godhead. The conclusion is that to get the assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself. Hare Krishna.
Next 37. Hare Krishna Jagannath.
Hare Krishna translation. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons and especially for the who is about to die. Perfect. Unless one is perfect anxious to inquire about the way of perfection, there is no necessity of approaching a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not a kind of decoration for a householder. Generally, a fashionable maintenance engages a so-called spiritual master without any profit. The pseudo spiritual master flatters the so-called disabled and thereby both the master and his ward go to hell without a doubt. Maharaja Parikshit is the right type of discipline because of he puts forward questions vital to the interest of all men, particularly for the dying man. The question is put forward by Maharaja Parikshit is the basic principle of the complete thesis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now let us see how intelligently the great master replies. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sasyamati. You can read 38 and 39.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sorry. Okay, text 38, translation. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. Text 39, translation. O powerful Brahmana, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Purport: saints and sages in the renounced order of life. Sorry. Just a second. Sorry, I'm not able to see the screen on my phone. Some problem was there. Yeah, I'm able to see. Should I continue or any?
Yeah, continue. Please continue.
Saints and sages in the renounced order of life go to the houses of householders at the time they milk the cows early in the morning and ask some quantity of milk for subsistence. A pound of milk fresh from the milk bag of a cow is sufficient to feed an adult with all vitamin values, and therefore saints and sages live only on milk. Even the poorest of the householders keep at least 10 cows, each delivering 12 to 20 quarts of milk, and therefore no one hesitates to spare a few pounds of milk for the mendicants. It is the duty of the householders to maintain the saints and sages like the children. So a saint like Sukadev Goswami would hardly stay at the house of a householder for more than 5 minutes in the morning. In other words, such saints are very rarely seen in the houses of householders, and Maharaj Parikshit therefore prayed to him to instruct him as soon as possible. The householders also should be intelligent enough to get some transcendental information from visiting sages. The householders should not foolishly ask a saint to deliver what is available in the market. That should be reciprocal relation between the saints and the householders. Hare Krishna.
Complete the 40.
Text 40, translation. Sri Suta Goswami said, the king thus spoke and questioned the sage using sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. Purport: thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the first canto, 19th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Sukadev Goswami. End of the first canto. Hare Krishna.
So we have completed successfully the first canto. This is one of the biggest canto, 19 chapters. So we have around 57 sessions and 9 months to complete this first canto. So seeking all of your association to continue the second canto as well. Thank you very much for all of your association. Thank you so much. We'll meet again on the next Tuesday at the same time, 7:30, with the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai. The Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Transcendental Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. We'll meet again on Tuesday.